Okay, today's lesson is on drawing a nose. The first thing you have to make sure that you have are the following things. Drawing pencil. If you have a nice soft drawing pencil that's 6B, that's great. You'll probably need an eraser. Sharpener. I always like to keep a nice sharp point on my pencil. And most important, you need one of the following. You need either a printed picture of yourself. You could use your phone, set your phone up, and pull up a image from your gallery of yourself, and it's usually a good idea to go ahead and zoom it in. Alright, so you could use something like this as well. Alright, so whichever is going to work best for you, that's what you should use. And of course, traditionally, mirrors are used. Alright, so a couple things to remember. All noses are different in size and shape. One of the unique things about my nose is this kind of bump shape, or this unusual sort of shape here in the bone structure on the bridge of the nose. And that's something that's unique about my nose. Very few lines are used to draw the nose. It's mostly tonal values. And a lot of times when you draw those funny shapes, the most basic nose I've seen people draw, of course, is this like little L-shaped nose. I see students sometimes draw this sort of nose too, which doesn't really have a whole lot of shape, and then they'll put the nostrils on there. Here's the one that really gets me. This one is hilarious. I call it the butt-shaped nose. So a lot of times too, kids will draw, or young, beginning artists will draw this kind of butt-shaped nose. Alright, so they're all fine. They all represent noses, but if you're trying to capture a realistic likeness, you want to think about these two different things and really make sure you have something to draw from. Alright, so let's get started. This is a nice way for some beginner students to start. All right. The other thing I recommend is that you draw very, very lightly. You can start with, and it's a little bit, I'm going to have to zoom in here. All right, so if you start with kind of like the circular shape and two more circles, a little bit smaller than the first. And you can kind of see, I'm just going lightly. When I draw a circle and try to get a nice round circle, I go around a few times until I can get it to the right size and to the right shape. Alright, it's kind of like swinging a bat or shooting a basket or swinging a golf club. Oftentimes you've got to take a couple practice swings before you get the right hit. Alright, so this round circle here kind of represents this kind of ball of the nose. Alright, so that's sort of in the center. The other two smaller ones represent sort of these two shapes right here. And sometimes they overlap and sometimes they don't. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. The other thing that I might want to do, just to get the proportions, I'm going to draw kind of like the lines that come up here, but I'm drawing them so light so that you can barely see them. Alright, so super light, and that will help me get proportions, because then I can kind of see if I'm going to draw a whole face out here, kind of where my eyes sort of belong. Now my drawing is a little bit smaller than actual size of the photograph, but that's okay. Alright, so if this represents here, again, I'm drawing super light pressure on the pencil so I can erase these things later. Alright, so next step, I'm going to be looking at the nostril shape. Okay, so I have this shape here. And again, if you kind of take your pencil and, make those practice swings, sometimes that really helps you to get the correct line and the correct shape. Okay, then you put it in. Nostril is just super small right there. Alright, now here's the other part. It's kind of like a line that comes around here. And it looks kind of like a parentheses. Alright, now I've got to figure this spot out. Okay, this nose is slightly turned in the photograph. Barely see that nostril at all, and that's fine. So I'm just going to draw what I see. I shouldn't try to outthink it. Just drawing what you see is really the best thing to do. Alright, So now, here's the rest of it. Pretty much, that's my basic shape of my nose. The rest of it is just going to be shading and tonal values around the rest of the nose. Alright, so another thing you can do, like here I have a very nice strong shadow, and this is called mapping. I'm going to come in and I'm just going to map sort of the shape of that shadow. Kind of comes around here. Most of it's actually to the side of my nose. Runs in here dark and kind of deep where the eye socket is. So I've got this sort of deep shape here. Thinking about the shape of the shadow. Alright, and back out here. You know, that's where you can tell I kind of have that little bump on my nose because of that shadow and the way it's shaped. And then this big shadow around here is going to define the outside edge. I think I just drew it a little too big. Alright, so take my eraser and bring it back in. Alright, so it looks kind of strange, but I think it's going to be just fine. Alright, so let's bring this over here so you can see it a little better. Alright, so now I'm just going to do some shading. I'm going to put these dark shadows in. This whole side of my nose is much darker than this side. So I'm not going to go super dark, but I am just going to come in and sort of hatch, do a general, still want to see my original lines that I put down, so I'm just going to draw kind of just like a little mid-tone value just to get the basic down here. Alright, so I can still see some of these shapes. Now I have to figure out where is it darker. Here's kind of a cool little shape too. It's another little tiny feature, little detail, but it's one of those things that, again, it just kind of helps to define my nose. Alright, here's kind of a fun thing too. It's the highlights. It's a really bright white spot. So what I'm going to do, now that I kind of have these basic lines drawn, I don't really need them anymore because I don't have an actual circle right there. So now I'm just going to look for those different values and figure out what shape are they, what size are they, and then put them in. So here's the shape of this highlight here, and I don't want to shade it, so I have to remember that this is kind of a highlight, and then I've got another highlight here, kind of weird shape, kind of like this. Sometimes it helps if you squint your eyes, you can kind of see those shapes a little bit better if you can't see them. If you take a photograph and you've got too much light on it, you're not going to see the shadows. So I always recommend that you try to get some nice shadows in your photography if you're using a photograph, or if you're using a mirror, just set up a lamp and make it darker. Alright, so pretty dark shape. I've got to get this darker. Looks like it's dark, pretty much darker than when I have it. So I'm just going to go in and keep shading and try to get it the darker. And as I make this one darker, I can see I need to make this one darker. The other thing I recommend is that if you are watching video tutorials, either this one or any other drawing video, it's good for you to kind of watch, stop the video at any point, pause it, and then try to pick it up again when you're at that point of, or that stage or step in your drawing. So draw a little, watch a video a little, try it out, draw a little. Sometimes it's nice to even try to draw the exact same thing that the artist is that's giving the tutorial, and then branch off and try it on your own. And then I'm just going to keep building and building these values up until I get them to the right value. Working with, I like working with these dark ones first and then moving on. Alright, I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to draw a little bit and then I will restart it in a moment. Okay, so I went in and I just rebuilt and redefined more of the information. So now I kind of have this value left. I can't see these highlights unless I put some other shading around them. So I'm going to go in and just really super light with my pencil, try to come in and just put this next value sort of on top. Sometimes it's good too if you do a black and white photo. That might help to make it simpler if you're just drawing with pencil, since you're drawing in a black and white sort of medium. Sometimes that could be helpful as well. And it does take time, does take patience. Alright, so now I have these weird little lines around here, so definitely want to try to get rid of that because it looks a little bit strange. Alright, and then over here, it's the outside of my face. Kind of this part is sort of defining the edge of my nose here. So it too is a shape of a value, and I'm going to go ahead and put that shape in there as well. And just adding a little bit of value in here. And here you can see I drew this part. It's called the Philtrum. Alright, so just continue drawing until you're happy with it.